All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Del Valley Sports Pod. It is episode number 49, an unusual day after podcast where we will be reacting to what happened last night, which by all accounts and purposes was an epic collapse. I was in the building last night. We'll get through everything reacting to last night. But Dan, happy Tuesday. How are you, brother?
Yeah, not well, Colin. The whole problem with this podcasting thing, and especially with football, when you're really watching the film and watching the game back, it really stunts your ability to get over the losses and the negative things that happen because you kind of have to relive it the next day. So I kind of was starting to get over it, and then I just spent last several hours watching the film all over again. Still ended in a loss, turns out. So I'm kind of in a bad mood all over again. That's a real problem.
You're saying they lost the game last night, but they didn't end up winning it today. Damn it.
Yeah,
That
I, I'm
stinks.
I'm an optimist, man. When I was a kid growing up watching Bambi, I swear to you, every single time I watched that movie, I thought maybe this time she'll get away. Maybe she'll make it out of the woods this time. She never did. She never
I,
does. The Eagles lost yesterday, and it's still lost today.
I love that sunny disposition that you have. And we'll try to at least keep some level of optimism when we react on last night. But that was really rough. I would like to start out by saying I've been to a fair amount of Eagles games. I probably 10 to 12 at the link at this point in my life. And last night, leaving the stadium was the most dejected I had ever seen this fan base after a loss in person, that is. I walked from the link through Lot all the way up 7th Avenue, 7th Street to where my car was at Chunk, and I barely heard a peep from anybody other than the honking of horns and mass chaos that is traffic leaving the stadium, which if you've been down there, you know how bad it is. That's why I parked 5 miles from the stadium. It was a good, nice somber walk to clear my
It's
head.
nice to have that walk. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, it would have been way better if I was like looking around at all the lights and be like, "Yeah, we're 2-0." But where do you want to start, man? I mean, there's so many points of blame that can go around, from the play calling to decision making. I mean, what's your biggest takeaway from last night as to what they did wrong, or at least one of them? There's many.
I think that we should take some time to unpack the game, but I think we have no choice but to start with the end of the game, and the final Eagles drive, and then subsequently the final, well, not the final Eagles drive, but I think you know what I mean. The
Yes.
second to last Eagles drive, I
Yep.
guess, and then the last Falcons drive. So I think we have to start there, and I think we just need to start with the conversation of what would you do as far as the whole third and three situation, which became, of course, fourth down. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have mixed feelings with this. Um, and let's just have a back and forth conversation because maybe I don't know exactly how I stand. I just want to preface it with this. Everyone is talking about this offensive drive, and we're gonna get into the defense again. Listen, I am pissed. I feel like too many people are spending all their time about this drive, and the defense, in some ways, is getting like this pass because the mistake we lost the game because of the decisions we made on this offensive drive, kicking the field goal, going for it on third, or not running the clock on third down, whatever. We're gonna talk about that, but I just want it to be known that this is BS. The defense was pathetic. There, I am not giving any passes to the defense, and whenever we talk about what decisions they should or should not have made, in no way reflect this pathetic defensive display that lost them the game at the end of the day. Okay, so we just need to say that. But honestly, I kind of feel like they have one of the higher paid quarterbacks in the league. They have, I don't know, one of the highest paid, best running backs in the league. They decided to give him a chance to get a first down there, put the ball in their hands, and 9 times out of 10, Barkley catches that ball. Those are the two guys in large part that got us in that position to begin with. That was a 11 play drive, I believe, and the Eagles offensive drive before that, I believe, was 17 plays. And the game that they won last week, they did the same thing. They passed the ball in the last drive. They risked incomplete passes. One of them was to Devontae Smith. And they decided we're going to win this game with our offense, the best part of our team here. We're going to trust our quarterback, and we're going to die on that sword. I'm okay with the play call on 3rd down and 3.
Okay. I would like to respond to a couple of things that you said. The defense gave up 15 points before the 2-minute warning yesterday, which, if you're looking at the whole NFL, only 7 other teams held their opponents to less points. The defense, although did not get after the quarterback the way they should have. I mean, the front four is basically non-existent, and Kirk Cousins can barely walk. I mean, he's coming off an Achilles injury, and he's like 37 years old.
Yeah.
The front four is not getting home. That is a big issue. But I think the defense as a whole was still this bend, don't break. They're giving up yards. They're not giving up points, which works. But that final drive was absolutely horrific. They were able to go down from the 30 to the 12 in 4 plays and like 30 seconds. I don't know how that happens.
Crazy.
This whole it's been a thing forever. Prevent defense does not work. You're preventing yourself from winning the game. You're snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. The other thing is Saquon Barkley is actually not a reliable pass catcher. Since 2021, he leads the NFL in dropped passes by running backs. Not sure if you knew that. I still trust him to make that kind of play, and he should. It's incumbent on him to make that play in that moment. But I disagree with the play call. Now, if it worked, great. I would have done something different. I would have run the ball there because you have 1 minute and 46 seconds left. You run the ball, you take it down to no time left. You're giving Atlanta the ball back with less than a minute. Now, they did go down and score in about a minute, but it's less likely if you give them not 1 minute and 35 and you only give them 55 seconds. It's so frustrating, dude.
So you would rather basically just, hey, we're going to drain as much clock as we can. Sorry, Hurts, hand the ball off. Obviously, we're assuming they don't get the first down. But if you hand the ball off there, the defense is probably selling out for the run. You could get a first, but you're kind of giving up on that drive in some ways, I would argue, obviously.
Yes and no, but I mean, Saquon, he carried the ball 22 times for 95 yards. He was averaging 4.3, and it seemed more often than not he was going for 5, 6, 8 yards. And even if they sold it,
situation though, that's I don't know that it's a exactly comparable. I don't know. I'm assuming that and that's why Saquon I think was so open is because they were all packed. Everyone's in the middle, man. Everyone is packed in the middle. Could they get it potentially? But I just don't think that is a fair comparison completely because those are very different situational runs.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking about most of the runs coming in the open field and this one was down by the goal line, I don't disagree, but it's 3rd and 3. Even if you get 2 yards, they could go for the tush push. I mean,
which looked amazing, by the way.
Yes, and it still does look good. It's the most boring play in football, but it's still working. Saquon rushes for 2 yards. Okay, they're down to a minute there. They do the tush push. Or it's been 24 hours almost, and I'm still as frustrated as I was last night. And I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how they could literally piss away that game in the last 2 minutes, which I don't know if you noticed this from one of the graphics from the game. Last year, they lost 3 games while having a lead in the final 2 minutes. So this makes 4 in the last 10 games that they've played. So that's not a good trend for them. But I would have run the ball personally. I just think situational football, that made the most sense. Now, the play call was great, and if it worked, Saquon catches that ball, Kellen Moore looks like a genius, they score a touchdown, that's game over.
Yeah, he dropped the ball. He was wide open, he threw a good pass, and he just dropped the football.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have I want to say would have easily been a first down, and in the absolute worst case scenario, it would have been 1 inch to go for the first down, which would be a very clear tush-push situation. Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time getting that upset when it was a really a play call that worked, and you used the most talented players on the team. I get this previous stats about Saquon, but this year all I've seen is he's been one of the most reliable players on the offense in a small sample size. I mean, look at the catch he made last game for a touchdown in the corner of the end zone. You don't think you can catch a flat route wide open? I mean, I just it's hard for me to get that upset at the call. I'll get upset at a really stupid call that had no chance of success, but especially after seeing that defense, I can understand why they wanted so badly to get the first down and not have to go into that 2-minute drill defense. Maybe they know something about that 2-minute drill defense that we don't know.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Now, I saw something on Instagram actually earlier that I wanted to bring up before the run or the pass play to Barkley. The play before it, when they took the timeout, did you see what happened on that play?
There was Fred. Someone wasn't lined up or in the right position or something like that. Correct?
That's not what I saw. I'm not saying that's not true, but I saw some guy break this down. They broke the huddle with like 6 seconds left. They were not going to run the play. They were trying to get the defense to jump off sides. Matthew Judon, the right defensive end, did jump off sides, but Mailata and Dickerson on the left side did not respond. And if they had flinched when Judon went off sides, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down, game over. I will send you the video later. Nick Sirianni is losing his mind because he's like, yes, he's like, what are you guys doing? We talked about this. Like, that was the game plan, was to get them to jump off sides. And Mailata, Dickerson did not flinch when they were pretty much being told to do so. And Sirianni was losing his mind.
See, I thought he was losing his mind because they broke the huddle super late and there were personnel issues.
Could be.
I have to watch that play again, but I thought that I didn't think it was on purpose that they were running behind schedule. Now, if it was, maybe that is really smart and a genius way to try to draw an offsides, because typically speaking, the offense will get out there nice and slow, set up, and it's pretty predictable. So maybe I'll have to watch that again because now I'm very intrigued. I thought the first watch that it was a personnel thing and that they were screwed something up, and maybe it was all calculated.
What leads me to believe that it was the intended to draw them off sides was Dallas Goedert was going in motion from that left side where Judon jumped off, and Goedert reacted. He pointed at him, but at that point they already ran the clock down to 0 and took the timeout. So it looked like Goedert was looking for the end to jump off sides. It noticed it, but the offensive lineman did not. So
let's pull it back even a couple more plays when the defense goes off sides on purpose because they've given up. We can't stop the tush push. We're going to go. If they won this game, this would have been one of the greatest moments of the game. It was iconic. The defense jumps off sides because they want to get a first down. They don't want to waste the clock. They jump off sides, and what does Sirianni do? It's like 3rd and 1. I don't think it's 4th. I think it's 3rd and 1. And he declines the penalty. He says, no, I don't want your free first down. We're going to get this tush push easily. No, I decline the penalty. That was one of the most badass things I've ever seen. If we win that game, that's all. That's one of the big plays we're talking about, is that this play is so successful that we don't even want your free first downs. But instead, the game goes awry, of course. That was one of the craziest moments I've ever seen.
Having been in the game, I missed that. And that's awesome.
Yeah,
like
you declined a free first down.
Ran an extra 4 seconds off the clock, made him take a timeout after the 2-minute warning. That is genius game awareness by Sirianni. But I mean, going back to the first quarter, you get down to the 10-yard line, 9-yard line, and you choose to go for it on 4th and 4 instead of kicking the field goal. I feel like he is aggressive at some points, not aggressive in others, and he can't make up his mind about when situationally he wants to be aggressive, play conservative, and the team doesn't know either. There's no identity. Doug Peterson, you had an identity. If you were on 4th and like less than 4, you were pretty much going for it wherever you are across the board. Sirianni seems to be flip-flopping back and forth between aggressive, passive, can't make up his mind, and it is not helping this team out. It's, I
Well,
mean,
there were, I don't know. I don't know. I thought they went for it early on the fourth down, and that kind of early in, what was that, the first quarter when they had like 4th and 3, 4th and 4, and that was a pretty big fail. So then the next time, much later in the game, where they had a very similar situation, they were very quick to kick it. And I thought, I know that they're doing different things there, but I thought that that was like a good adjustment. Um, Especially in those situations, the offense probably isn't the same without AJ Brown in there, and I don't know. I guess I get that, but I also thought that that was a good adjustment to not go for it later in the game. I thought it was right to take the points later in the game, then, especially how that first attempt went much earlier in the first quarter. I've seen a lot of people make the argument that they wanted kind of the the best of both worlds. A lot of people I saw said that they wanted the Eagles to run the ball at the end of the game. There again, we're getting back to that they wanted it to be a run play on 3rd and 3, milk the clock, and then say you just got like no yards or 1 yard, not close enough for a tush push. They wanted them to then go for it on fourth down. So having the aggressiveness is still trying to leave your offense on the field and kind of end and win the game with the offense, but still getting that clock drained down. Because I heard a lot of people say that statistics show, new age era statistics show that a 6 point lead is not that much more significant than a 3 point lead. And I think the big argument there, which I think is probably pretty accurate, is that when teams are down by 3, they're pacing themselves for a field goal. Whereas when they're down by 6, they're pacing themselves for a touchdown. So even if they have the same amount of time, their pace might be a lot slower and tends to be a lot slower because they're trying to focus on just getting in field goal range.
yeah, and the one thing I saw, and I'm sure a lot of people have already seen it today, is whether they showed it on the graphic during the game. I think it was probably after the game. If the Eagles had run that ball on 3rd and 3 at the 10 and didn't convert, but at least milked the clock down, they had a 97% chance of winning because of the time that they ran off the clock, giving the Atlanta Falcons less time with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be second guessing this game all year as to what they should have done. I would have run the ball, take as much time off the clock as you can, but I mean that's one play out of many that they just didn't execute right on yesterday. I mean, I thought Jalen Hurts had a very good game. Statistically wise, he didn't have a great passing day. What, he passed for like 180 yards or something like that, but
About that.
was ran the ball all over the field, 13 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown for Hurts
I thought it was
yesterday.
the fastest he's looked in like 2 years.
I agree. Absolutely. He looks like he's back to his 2022 self, and whatever knee injury was lingering last year, it seems to be behind him, which is good to see. But I don't know, man. I mean, that pass at the end of the game wasn't great, but they're forcing it. They're in do or die mode.
Falcons did something the Eagles couldn't do. They gave a pass rush. They run a stunt. The Eagles defense on the last drive tried a couple stunts, and the Falcons picked them up beautifully. Notably, I think the second pass play in that Falcons drive, um, uh, who's on the outside there? And I'm blanking. I think it was Sweat. Someone was coming from the outside. You know what? It was Huff, actually. Huff was coming from the outside, and Carter was a defensive tackle inside him. Carter tries to bring the lineman inside. And I tell you what, Huff did a stunt move around him to come up the middle, and the Falcons picked it right up, dude. They picked it right up. And then on that play where Hurts throws the interception at the end of the game, I think it was Dickerson did not pick it up. He's chasing it. You know, they run a very similar like twist. I'll just call it stunt, and they get to the quarterback. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. When the Eagles got the ball back with 34, 39 seconds, whatever it was, I was like pretty convinced that they were going to drive down the field and get a field goal. I genuinely was. Um, if that team has AJ Brown, they might. The problem is, you know, there's a clear thing I think with Hurts and probably with any quarterback that if the lack of chemistry, if there's a lack of chemistry, he does not. He's not going to throw you the ball. Like Dotson, I don't know that he got a ball thrown to him apart from the one catch he had with the bubble screen. And I feel that we've seen this in the past with Hurts, where if he's uncomfortable with you, if he doesn't have full confidence in where you're going to be, or if you're not on the same page, he's I feel like not going to throw you the ball. Um, and I think we've seen this in the past. And I think that's a real big thing with Hurts because Hurts is a big extender of plays kind of guy. I'm going to roll out, which I think he's kind of a little bit this year started to go back to the old Hurts where as soon as he's uncomfortable, he rolls to the right side when he doesn't need to. Sometimes he needs to, but man, he's so quick to roll out to the right. I feel like that was something he did a ton in his first year, and then he got rid of it a little bit. And I think he's starting to get a little antsy and be real quick to roll out to that right side again, which is kind of predictable for the defense. But as far as the rolling out goes, then the receivers start to kind of improvise a little bit, right? And I just think makes me think of like Russell Wilson and how successful he was with his receivers, Ty Lockett and the like. Who's the other guy? He's retired now. Baldwin, Is it Doug Baldwin?
Yeah, Doug
The
Baldwin.
real pistol guy. And it's just I think that you see plays like that all the time where Hurts is rolling out and he finds Smith. I think that they just are really on the same page with those improvising and kind of like extending routes and making adjustments. I don't think that's there with Dotson at all right now. I think he's still just getting his feet wet. He just got there. How about Covey? He looked
I
like he felt more comfortable with Covey than Dotson. I mean, he went to
you
Covey
read
6 times. He caught it 6 times.
you read my mind. Dan, do you know how many catches Britton Covey has in his career, which his entire career was just last year in these two games?
Apart from this game or in total?
Before this game,
Before this game, I bet you he had 2.
he had 4. He had 4
4?
catches all of last year. He had 6 last night.
Yeah.
And Dallas Goedert was only targeted 4 times. It looks like he can't get open. I was hearing that there was one route where he barely ran. He was like walking through his route. I'll have to find that on the film because I still didn't get to go back and watch the game. And man, I got to tell you, being at a game is a lot of fun, but that you get so much better of a viewing experience of the game watching, when you're just in a comfortable environment like your couch. As awesome as it is to be at the stadium, I feel like you almost have to go back and rewatch the game to really kind of understand the ins and the outs of what happened. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know why Covey was the second leading receiver, at least in terms of targets. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe we can figure out why from the film. But Britton Covey, if he's your second option, that's not a good offensive game plan. And going back to what you said on the front four, the defensive line is a real problem. A real problem. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are getting no push. Jordan Davis is getting pushed around. And from what it looked like last week, it looked like the Atlanta Falcons offensive line was Swiss cheese, the way the Pittsburgh Steelers made them look. Now, obviously, they have TJ Watt, who might be the best defensive player in the NFL right now. But Josh Sweat is not an elite pass rusher. Bryce Huff is basically non-existent. Nolan Smith, irrelevant. They cannot get home to the quarterback, and Kirk Cousins can't run. It's not like they were, flushing him out of the pocket. He was standing in there like a statue in the pocket. They still couldn't get to him. They need to do something about this defensive line. I don't know what the problem is with Carter and Davis because we thought those guys were the stopgaps, the main pieces that this defensive line was going to rely on for 5 to 10 years. And they are not showing the consistent growth that we projected them to have going in, at least through the first 2 games.
Yeah, and this is a big reason why my emphasis is not on the play calling per se for this loss, and it's not on the drop pass by Barkley. Like that stuff can be figured out. Like we can learn from those moments in terms of decision making and play calls, and I trust Barkley. I would do that again with Barkley. Like Barkley's a stud. Hurts is a stud. This team goes with those guys. It goes as far as those guys can go. So even more reason why my emphasis for this loss and the biggest thing that I'm harping on is the defense and how they handled that last drive, because regardless of if the regardless if the Eagles get that first down, like there's going to be moments this year where that defense is going to need to get a stop. They needed a stop. They had the whole field. The offense had no timeouts. They had to go basically like 70 yards, and they didn't even come close. They didn't even they didn't make a stop. They didn't even come close to a stop. They didn't even come close to a sack. And that's why I'm harping so much on that, is because that situation, the offensive side of this, it feels like we can change. We also didn't have AJ Brown, huge piece, huge missing cog. The defense, those are our dudes. That's our defensive line. There's nobody that we can just pick up that's going to be able to get us a sack a game, a sack every other game. And that D-line looked freaking pathetic. That is when the D-line should be the hungriest, dude. When you go into a drive and they're passing it 100%. This is where I save that move. This is where I save that one gimmick that I can throw at the lineman and get to the quarterback. This is it right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they got to let loose, and what did they do? They didn't do diddly squat, man. And they looked awful. And it's especially the rushers. Throughout the game, I did see some good moments for Carter. He's had a couple of really nice swim moves to get in there, missed the quarterback a time or two. Some decent plays there. Didn't see a ton of Jordan Davis. Didn't get the time to do the all 22, so I can't speak as much to line play. But I tell you what, Sweat, Huff, dude, where is he?
Huff is not
leave New York? Is he here? I mean, Huff was unbelievable. He looks dazed and confused out there, man. He looks confused. He looks like, and it's against the run and the pass. It's remarkable, and it's just that's the most important thing to me as far as takeaways go, because this is the most damaging aspect for future games. Is how do we fix this for future games when the D-line cannot bring any pressure? And I thought the linebackers didn't look nearly as good. I thought Bond didn't look nearly as good in this game. CJGJ has been phenomenal against the run at times, coming up and being just fearless, dude. Just fearless. And I saw it in the film last week, and obviously everyone saw the big play where he made the stop on, what was it, 3rd and 1 or 4th one, whatever. I think it was 4th and 1, actually.
4th down, yeah.
But man, he seems like he is struggling in the pass defense side of things. But the D-line, man. The D-line, it's scary how ineffective they are on clear pass rush situations. And to your point, Kirk Cousins can't even move around. Now you start playing teams with a quarterback, then not even running quarterbacks, but that can improvise a little bit and move around a little bit. That's a whole nother element we didn't have to really deal with this game. It was awful. It was. I was ashamed, dude. That defensive line rush was really abysmal, and I don't know how you fix that.
Sirianni said it in whether it was press conference last night after the game or this morning. They didn't put themselves in very good pass rush situations because they had a lot of second and third manageables. I mean, the run defense is getting shredded. They're giving up like 160 yards per game. And that goes back to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Davis can't play in that 2-minute defense because he's too slow. He's not going to be able to handle the pace of that game, so he's out. Even Jalen Carter to a certain extent. I mean, they're run stuffers, but they're not stuffing the run. They're not doing what they were brought on this team to do. And it's hard for them to pin their ears back when they are in a bad defensive situation where the third and manageable, it's not like it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 where you can just go get them. They barely had any of that yesterday, at least from what I could tell in the stands. So
and the linebacker play plays into that too, and being able to shed blocks and take good routes to the ball carrier. I would group them into that run defense as well. If CJGJ is making tackles on the run, that means in a lot of cases that they got through everybody else. So
yeah,
but that pass rush at the very end, man. When it's a pass and you still, they had those guys locked up pretty good. It wasn't really that close, and they were doing some stunts and it wasn't working. And there is a degree to which you give the Falcons O-line a little credit, especially with how poorly it performed last week, in my estimation, and honestly, last year also. I'd loop that in. They did do some genuine good blocking, but Sweat and I'm looking at these edge rushers, and Huff has been so disappointing. And Sweat, it just feels like Sweat has been the guy on this team forever, where he's taken like little baby steps ahead, and we've been waiting for like a big step for years now. And maybe that's just not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. If it hasn't happened yet, I mean, he's a good rotational piece, but if he's your best edge rusher, you probably have one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL, and it's shaping out to be that way. Bryce Huff, we got duped. Whatever he did last year with the Jets, he was a good player on a great defense, but he is not meant to be the guy. He is not a guy, let alone the guy so far. And we're paying this guy $17 million a year. That's on Howie. I mean, that no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's Howie. And a lot of these defensive issues are on Howie. One thing that stuck out to me, even still in the bitter end of the game, Younghoe Koo has to make a 48-yard extra point.
Yeah.
Everybody in the stadium's like, okay. They just went down the field in 50 seconds, but now he has to make a 50-yard extra point. We have life. And the stones on that guy drills it. That was really the kick in the balls. And like even up till that point, I'm like, we still have life. This could go to overtime. I'm gonna get home at 2 a.m. That's fine. To no avail.
There's so many amazing kickers in the NFL right now. It's actually pretty crazy.
Dude, it's crazy. And the kicking play in the NFL is fantastic. The quarterback play in the NFL is absolutely atrocious. It feels like there's 3 quarterbacks there's Patrick Mahomes, and then there's like 5 guys who are pretty good. And then other than that, it's like none of these guys are really worth the money they're getting paid. I'm looking at you, Deshaun Watson. And the NFL is just weird. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, no favorite has covered a spread of greater than 6.5 points. And a lot of them have lost outright.
That was kind of the route I was going to go next. That's another reason why I don't feel horrible I feel bad about the loss. It was like one of the most polarizing losses of all time in terms of how it went down. It was on right now. Jason Martinez I don't think he was doing this in the past, but he's on Locked On Eagles.
Yes, post game.
I feel like I don't remember him doing that in the past, but I think he quoted on one of his recent pods that they what's the famous line about taking victory out of the jaws of defeat?
Yeah. Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
Such a good quote.
That's what I said it. I said it at the start, and I was saying it walking out of the stadium last night. I'm like, we had this game in hand. This should not have been a loss, and we somehow pissed it all away in the last 90 seconds. And
but to your point with the thing you just said about the spreads is, listen. It's week 2. I would rather it happen now when we figure out how to fix things now very early on, especially compared to how it went last year. We fell apart 2/3 of the way through the season. It was too late in the season, and we couldn't figure it out, and we just drowned. We couldn't tread the water anymore. I know I don't want to have like big loser energy here, big loser mentality, but thank God this is happening week 2 where we can make some changes. Thank God this is happening the same weekend where at least the Cowboys are losing and letting up 41 points from the Saints. It's not as detrimental of a situation, and maybe it's maybe there are important lines. Sound like I've been listening to too much Hurts probably. There's important lessons here to be learned, okay? We have to execute better. We have to get closer together through these trials and tribulations. But no, seriously, I mean, you just talked about the favorites and the spreads. We just saw the Raiders have an unbelievable comeback against the Ravens, who I think are a decent football team. Like, stuff like this is happening. It's early in the year. Teams are trying to find their identities. We're trying to figure out who's going to bring it, who's going to not. We have new coaches, I do think I've said this before about the secondary and giving them some time to develop some chemistry. You need a pass rush. That's just a fact. But I do think that chemistry with the secondary and safeties and corners and linebackers, knowing when to stick with guys, when to let guys off, knowing and understanding their roles, I think that does take some time. So I do have hope that is going to get better. Gosh, I hope that's going to get better. The biggest concern to me is just the pass rush, because I don't know how that can drastically change. But I will say one guy on the D line who I gotta be completely honest with you, I didn't even know this guy. Like, Booker? Was it
Thomas
Thomas
Booker.
Booker?
Yep, I thought you might go there.
So maybe Thomas Booker's the answer to all of our problems. Former practice squad guy, right? Wasn't he a practice squad? Thomas Booker. Oh, the fourth. I do like that.
If Thomas Booker's your answer, we have a bigger problem.
I think you're right. But he did have a heck of a football game from what I could see in limited time.
Now, going back to what you brought up, and I will argue the other side, this would have been a golden opportunity for them to get a win against a team that is seemingly not that good. I mean, there was a lot of hype around the Falcons because they brought in, Drake London and Kirk Cousins. They have two really good running backs in Algier and Bijan. But the Cowboys, Niners, and Lions all lose yesterday. By all intents and purposes, the three teams that are your equals in the NFC to contend for the NFC Championship all lost. You would have put yourself ahead 2-0 above all of those teams, all in conference losses, by the way, which comes down to tiebreakers at the end of the game. I have a feeling we're gonna look back at this game come week 17, week 18, if we are one spot out of the one seed or losing to the Cowboys to not win the NFC East. I really feel like this game might come back to bite them when it was a win that they turned into a loss by bad execution, bad play calling, bad situational awareness. And it hurts. The worst thing was, dude, and this is going back to being down there at the game, there was so much vibe, high energy around Xfinity Live, dude. I have never seen that place as lit as it was yesterday. I mean, they had a concert out on the concourse. NFL or huh?
Red October?
Mate, okay. I should preface this by saying when it's game day,
advocate stuff today.
That's fine. When it's game day, I don't always go to Xfinity Live because I'm usually tailgating or doing something else. But I would say even prior or even with Phillies playoff games, I mean, you have Jason Kelce there. They have an EDM show going on. There is NFL Countdown there. Fletcher Cox, Nick Foles, Kelce, they're all walking out through the people. People are going ballistic. Yeah. I mean, it was like a rave.
Yeah.
And this is just an Xfinity Live. I mean,
brought the dog mask back. That was pretty cool.
The tailgate lots were insane. Everybody was just feeling so hyped. And Nick Foles retirement night, finally the home opener after they're in Brazil. Everybody's been waiting since the playoffs for this night. And that's why we were all so dejected after the game. We're just like, what happened? Like a lot of times there's anger. Like we're screaming, we're yelling, we're like all pissed off. It was the quietest I had ever seen Eagles fans leaving that stadium. It was like a funeral. Everybody's just looking at
was waiting for his standing ovation. You guys didn't give him one.
Who?
Drake London.
Oh yeah, good for him.
That was a bold quote by him, I thought.
I didn't see that quote. Glad I didn't see that.
It was post game. It's just like, yeah, stand for my standing ovation, but
yeah, and then he does the machine gun celebration that gets him a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, Scott Van Pelt kept it's funny to listen to him because he's so like comfortable in his job that I feel like he'll do and say things that other sportscasters could never do. Like one of his last and maybe this is bells and maybe this is just how it is, and I'm giving him too much credit, but he was interviewing. It was probably Drake London, whoever he was interviewing at the end of the game, and he was kind of like, you know how he does that transition into Sports Center off of the Monday Night Football. He did the like, they're telling me that I have to go, but I just wanted to ask you one more thing, or I just stick with me a little bit longer. I'm like, damn, that's badass. He runs the show, dude. Get out of his ear. He does what he wants.
Scott Van Pelt has
just
so
like
much.
a little thing that really caught my attention.
Scott Van Pelt is probably one of the best Sports Center anchors / ESPN personalities to ever live. He has so much cachet in his position there. He can do whatever he wants, and I believe deservedly so. He is that good at his job. I love the fact that he's the host of Monday Night Countdown, which I recorded. I was in the background waving like an idiot in my Carmichael jersey. I want to go back and see if I can see myself. I want to go back and rewatch Monday Night Countdown from yesterday because I just want to see the vibe. I don't know if you were working, so I don't think you got to watch any of it.
I didn't. I tried to rewatch as much as I could. I saw there was a little stupid little skit, probably ESPN posted on their Instagram. Did you see the skit, which is how you saw what Kelsey was wearing? Did you see the skit as to how he got that uniform?
No, I did see the Italian tracksuit, but I didn't see.
He went to the Eagles locker room, was banging on the door. Hey, let me in! And guess who opens the door?
Big Dom.
Big Dom opens the door, and then he starts saying how he forgot his outfit or whatever. Because I guess that was a story last week.
Yes,
of course, classic Kelsey. And Dom goes well, I can't let you in because you're not on the team anymore. Your family, so. Hold on, I got something for you. So Big Dom, the Italian stallion, that's where he got it from.
Okay, that all makes sense. That's because that's exactly what Dom wears on the sideline.
Yeah,
obviously
exactly.
Different size, but
it is it was a stupid skit, but it made sense and it made it funny that's why he was wearing that outfit. Big Dom, the Italian.
All of that makes sense now because Jason Kelsey's not Italian, I don't think. I don't know what he is.
No, but that's a Big Dom special, and he's family, so.
That was hilarious.
He gets included in on that.
Yeah.
Kelsey was everywhere, man. He
is everywhere.
And then freaking Joe Buck didn't want to let him go, man. He was infatuated with him. You didn't probably get to see that, but
I did not know.
Joe Buck was the most I've ever seen Joe Buck geeking out next to Jason Kelsey. It was a little weird, but obviously it's Kelsey. We love him, but it was kind of weird. Kind of funny.
Jason Kelsey is one of the most popular figures to ever play in the NFL. Is with his whole podcast, his brother obviously dating Taylor Swift, this, that, the third. I saw the Monday Night Countdown audience last week, was the highest it's ever been, and I can't argue that it's not because of Jason Kelsey. At least part of it.
Oh yeah,
everybody just wants to see that guy. And why not? Why wouldn't you?
He's a retired offensive lineman, dude. Good. He is putting some respect on the name.
Retired O-lineman.
Jeff Saturday. Give me Jason Kelsey.
But to that point, retired offensive linemen are really good in that role. And I'm thinking of Joe Thomas and Andrew Whitworth, who are on CBS and NFL Network. And one thing I noticed, and this always happens, is just the extreme weight loss that an offensive lineman goes through once they retire. Joe Thomas used to be 330 pounds. For those of you who don't know who Joe Thomas is, he was the long-term tackle for the Cleveland Browns, one of the best to ever play his position, will be in the Hall of Fame. That dude was a big
in Cleveland.
Yeah, what a wasted career that was. Nevertheless, you wouldn't recognize him if you saw a picture of him now compared to when he played, because he probably dropped 80 pounds, and that's just what happens when you're an offensive lineman. You're consuming a massive amount of calories to just keep your body size at a borderline unhealthy level. But Jason Kelsey, I saw him from 100 yards away because when he was dancing on the stage, he looks just like a normal dude. I mean, he was never the biggest offensive lineman, but even him
really
dropped.
Good though.
He does. He looks great.
The dancing, he straight up
he kills it.
Athletic, dude.
Oh,
obviously we always say he's a super athletic lineman. I thought I saw a lot of clips of him moving around. I'm like, damn, man. You know what else it was? I saw another clip. I don't think it was. I don't know when it was. A couple days ago, or whatever. He's playing a little field hockey or something. He is so freaking athletic. It's so wild.
That's why he's so good at center.
It's funny. The opposite of what you just described is so. In most cases, you see it that way, but I feel like we got to witness the opposite of that, from lean and skinny to massive giant man with Jordan Mailata. Because Jordan Mailata, when he started with the Eagles, he was a big guy, but he wasn't really that heavy, and he was rugby fit. So like cardio was
Oh, yeah.
probably pretty solid.
Oh yeah.
Dude, Mailata now, he's put on some pounds. He's a big boy now, but it's funny because he's had a very significant transition in like the opposite way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a very good point, which I didn't even think of. Yeah, he had to bulk up. He had he had the physical traits to be able to do that position. He just didn't have the size to go with his height. And now he does. And everywhere you turn, great late round pick by Howie. Bad early round pick by Howie. If only we could figure out how to take the correct players in the first 2 to 3 rounds. Quinyon Mitchell.
Great early.
What, did I beat you to it?
If I can't make the early pick, I'll just trade him for someone that's already good. That's not a bad idea, honestly. Just keep doing that.
Yeah, I think one thing that we have to look for coming down the stretch is which teams are out of it and who's willing to ship us an offensive lineman, or sorry, defensive lineman, edge rusher.
I think Hassan Reddick is still holding out.
Yeah, no, I do not want Hassan Reddick back here, $25 million a year. When he left, nobody from the Eagles really made a stink about it. I don't think that guy was very well respected in the Eagles locker room based on things that I've heard.
And I think people forget how stinking ice cold he was for a good portion of the end of the year. He had a great year last year, and then it stopped, and it was bad when they needed him most at the end of the year last year. His last third of the year was pretty bad.
He became more focused on his money and personal stats and chasing sacks than he was trying to be a good teammate and football player. Now, I can't confirm any of this, but that's what I'm hearing and what seems to be the likely course of what happened last year. But real quickly, going back to what you said about Jason and that post game. So Jason and Harry, two of my favorite guys in Philadelphia sports media, they are pretty much the guys that got me locked on Philly Sports Talk because they had the midday show back from 2017 until 2019 on the Fanatic during the Eagles Super Bowl run. You know, I say it all the time. When I moved to Pittsburgh, that's when I started listening to sports radio so that I could stay in contact with what the vibe was back here, which led me to being a better sports fan than I ever had, led me to going to Chupka's to watch Eagles games, led me to meeting you and this podcast. So in a very roundabout way, Harry and Jason, who do the Locked On, are the reason that this podcast is a thing and the reason you're friends. We are friends. Also, I was also at Xfinity Live yesterday because our buddy Andrew Salchunas from the morning show on 97.5 The Fanatic, somewhat decent friend of mine, they do the pregame show, and they are doing it from Xfinity Live every year or every week to my knowledge. So I ran down there to see those guys, and I also believe I have us a guest booked for one of our upcoming episodes. Another guy who actually does part of the Locked On series, but this one is for the Phillies. So that's a little bit of a teaser. I believe we'll get a guest on within the next few weeks. So
sounds
update
great.
there.
Just time for the playoffs, it sounds like.
Yep. Well, that guy who's very knowledgeable on, I mean, he does Eagles pregame show and does Phillies postgame show, a podcast just about every day. So a guy whose brain I want to pick and respect his acumen on both teams, all teams, but especially Eagles and Phillies. Is there anything from last night's game that we missed that we need to bring up? Are you ready to talk about the Saints? I'm trying to. There's nothing else that really stuck out to me that we didn't cover yet.
You want to throw a little thumbs up, thumbs down?
Sure. I didn't plan it, but I'll wing it. I'm pretty good at winging it, I think.
Yeah. Do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
I'll let you go first.
All right. Um, thumbs. Got to start thumbs down always, even in a
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah.
And on the positive. Thumbs down. I would argue that there are indeed some options here. You kind of go outside the box with this. I think I'm gonna go with we already talked about it. This defensive line. I know you did Huff last week, right?
Yes.
Well, I get to do him this week.
Perfect.
I think it's fair that I get to do him this week, okay? You won't find him on the box score. I'll tell you that right there. Don't go looking. You won't find him. It'll be like he was never, ever there. I'm not gonna waste your time with words here. He's been invisible, and he's been really disappointing. And I really hope that changes because we are very much locked into this player for the foreseeable future. Gosh, I hope he doesn't become the next James Bradbury. I hope he doesn't. But who's also invisible. But yeah, thumbs down, Bryce Huff. It'd be so fun if we could make it a thumbs up next week. I'm hoping for it.
And going forward, we will have to pencil in Bryce Huff as our thumbs down until he proves us otherwise. He's just going to be automatic.
We'll
Okay,
guest on next week just so we can have them do the thumbs down for Bryce Huff.
there we go. I got to go Jordan Davis.
Welcome to Philly here, Bryce Huff.
Yeah, I got to go Jordan Davis. I mean, that guy had so much hype and promise, and thus far through 2 weeks, especially last night, from what I could tell, he was getting pushed around. And a guy who's 350 pounds should not be getting pushed around. The Georgia Bulldogs on this team, the Broad Street Bulldogs, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean's probably the only one who's giving us anything. Nolan Smith is non-existent. But Jordan Davis, yep, you getting my thumbs down this week.
Just a quick note. I don't remember seeing him in there, if I'm being honest, but Jeremiah Trotter Jr. had 2 tackles yesterday. Do you remember seeing him at all?
Nope.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's fun.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a young player.
That's
Was he
fun.
the 4th round pick?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Just fun.
I don't think we're expecting anything from him in week 1, but the fact that he's getting some play time is good. All right, thumbs up. You want to go or should I?
You can start us off here.
All right. I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith because he was not the lone bright spot, but one of the best bright spots on offense yesterday. Stepped up when he needed to in the absence of AJ Brown, and it looks like his chemistry with Jalen Hurts is only getting better as the years go on. It's good to see. Hasn't scored a touchdown yet this year, I don't think, but you know, he had 10 targets, 7 catches, 7 I'm sorry, he did have a touchdown yesterday. I'm an idiot.
Yeah. That was a dime, a beautiful pass from Hurts, kind of in between 3 defenders, kind of front, left, center type deal.
Yeah.
That was a really nice pass. Great connection between those two.
Yeah. So, in the absence of AJ Brown, I felt Devontae Smith stepped up the way he should and showed why he's the best second option at wide receiver in the NFL, in my opinion. Also, to anybody listening, I apologize if my voice is slightly raspy. I was screaming my absolute head off last night.
It had better be. It had better be.
Oh, I was full throat. What say you, Dan?
I'm gonna say a player, but really, I want to say offensive line here. So I don't know. I want to say Juergens really bad, but he had a couple of those illegal man downfield, which I'm super torn on because I just hate RPOs because this BS happens, and I feel like just because the lineman gets penalized for that, it doesn't always mean it's their fault because if the quarterback just holds on to the ball longer than they should, like the linemen are supposed to move down. That's why it's supposed to be run, pass it immediately, or don't pass it. So, you know, I'm going to say Juergens, screw it. Just less laundry next time, bud. But I also don't know if it's really your fault or not. The tush push was extremely effective. They literally got like a 3-yard gain on one of them. It was so good. And this offensive line, I don't know how much you could notice it from being in the stadium live. Colin, there were a couple runs where all of the linemen were blocking men 5 yards down the field before Barkley had even gotten past the line of scrimmage. I mean, there were some amazing moments. And honestly, in the pass blocking, they were pretty darn good too. I want to say they let up like one sack. I still don't think I think Hurts makes it hard for them sometimes when he rolls out to the right and gets out of the pocket when he doesn't need to. Certainly, there's times when he needed to, but I thought the offensive line was awesome. And I'm telling you, if you get the chance to watch some of the film, you'd be impressed. The offensive line had created some really good holes, and last year I said this a bunch of times. The more you watch the All 22, the more you go, oh, running backs don't matter. It's all linemen. And I still believe, I still carry on with me how important the linemen are. But it's so cool. Last year you'd watch these runs and be like a 5-6 yard run for Swift because of the O-line. And then Swift couldn't really do too much more beyond that. He did a good job hitting the hole, but not necessarily always doing the second level thing. Dude, Saquon Barkley is awesome because he hits the hole and he does moves along the way to kind of fake out the defense. I mean, guys are breaking their ankles left and right with these cuts by Barkley. So, but it's awesome because he's getting those yards that are just a gift from the great offensive line blocks. But then when he has that one-on-one with like a safety or linebacker, they're toast, dude. He's so fast. So he's able to then use his own individual ability, but he's set up to be in that position because of phenomenal O-line play. The O-line looks really good. I'm so impressed. And it was a little bit of a question mark, especially without Kelsey this year, but yeah, we'll say Jurgens, but just in general, the O-line I thought had a really good game, minus some of the flags, which again, it's hard for me to say whose fault that is with some of the RPO stuff, especially.
Yeah. No, it seems to be a point of emphasis by the officiating in the NFL of calling that illegal man downfield. I heard it said that, those penalties are an extreme uptick this year as opposed to years past. It's, that the officiating always picks a few different penalties that they're keying in on, and that seems to be one of them. And you're right. Yesterday? Yeah. It is tough with the way that this offense runs. You have maybe a second and a half to get the ball out or for Jalen Hurts to make up his mind and scramble. It's tough. And that's Kellen Moore is going to have to make adjustments there. I'm glad you brought up the offensive line, though. In the few plays I did get to go back and rewatch, it was their second drive. They had a 3rd and 9, and Hurts ends up scrambling out to the right and only picks up like a yard. And I remember Troy Aikman was like, yeah, the fans they're letting them hear it already. I went back and rewatched that play about 4 times. Jalen Hurts had a wide open hole and bounced it out. Did you see what Goddard did on that play?
I saw it live. I couldn't believe they didn't comment on it.
Yeah.
And then I saw it in the film too. It was beautiful. Was it not?
He had at least 5 yards straight up the gut off right guard, and then Dallas Goedert coming from the near slot to the linebacker, hat on hat. Jalen Hurts could have ran for 15, 20 yards, but Jalen Hurts got scared, bounced it outside. I mean, they had Jurgens and Dickerson, I believe, had a double team on the nose tackle. Lane Johnson had his guy. That was one that stuck out to me.
He's got to maybe start he's going to go to the right because it was the right guard or the right tackle had a guy.
Yeah.
That was the one guy that maybe could have shed into that hole. Okay, so just Barkley does this so well, right? Where he kind of doesn't tell you the hole that if you watch him run, he kind of doesn't tell you the hole he's going to, and then he'll go into it last second. He's really, I think, extremely clever when he runs. I think it's all calculated. But if Hurts just kind of does a little shimmy to the right, just get that D lineman off balance a little bit, and then goes up the middle, yeah, Colin, you're right. He had a wide open hole, and then he had Goddard just waiting to run around. And if Goddard makes that one block, I don't know who else was back there. 100%. I'm so glad you brought that up because that looked like initially that looked like isn't this the Eagles of last year? 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, a quarterback draw play. Dude, it was a great design, and it was there, and it could
It
have
was
been there for 20 yards, but he didn't run up the middle, and I don't know why. And I don't know why they didn't say anything about it on the broadcast.
yeah. Yeah, they didn't. I was just as surprised as you are. Saquon Barkley, I want to say, is the best at hesitating before getting to the hole and then pop since Le'Veon Bell. That was where Le'Veon Bell made his bread and butter. He would be shifty, checking out the hole, hesitate, boom, gone.
Yeah.
As soon as he saw the hole, he was gone. I don't know if it's Jalen Hurts, maybe still not trusting the little bit of knee injury he had. He doesn't want to run straight up the mouth of the defense and get rolled up on. But yeah, I mean,
That's
Goddard
the
was
play,
coming
though.
over.
If that's where the hole is, then
Yeah.
you have to.
But what struck me was, again, looking at the way the offense is going, Goddard came square in on the linebacker and then had a seal block pushing him to the outside. Now when Hurts broke it off to the right, Goddard couldn't block him because that linebacker is already on the outside, and that was the guy that made the tackle.
Yeah.
Goddard was positioning himself on the inside to seal him off so that Hurts could go straight up the middle. He decides to bounce it outside. The play call was clearly up the 3-hole or whatever it is on the right side there between the guard and the tackle, and they had it, and Hurts did not execute. So that's on Hurts. It's not on Kellen Moore. So it is small little details that I love going back to see, and you're able to suss out whether it was a bad play call, bad execution. That one was definitely on Hurts. That was not on Kellen Moore. That was a great play call. It was there. And
it was funny because when they showed that play live, they very briefly showed the replay of it. And you know how sometimes they'll show the replay of where the classic, like almost all 22 view, where you're behind, like the Madden you described as like the Madden viewpoint.
Yep.
They really briefly showed a replay of it that way, and that's when I first was like, "Wait
Yeah.
a second, what?" Wait. Which very rarely happens, by the way, when you're watching it just on TV. You usually don't see that stuff until you look deeper. But I'm glad you brought that up because that actually could have been a really. Now, granted, Hurts, he had a great game, but I'm glad that you brought up that play because I thought the same exact thing.
look at us picking up on the same things. We
Yeah.
film aficionados that we are.
Yeah, man.
That is a joke, ladies and gentlemen. We are far from experts, but I'd like to think we know some a thing or two. We've seen a thing or two. We know a thing or two, but we're far from experts. It's fun. It's fun when we're on the same page. And again, none of this is ever scripted. We just kind of fly off the cuff. That's why I love talking to you, Dan, because we don't need it. We don't need a show sheet. We don't need a script. We can have entertaining debate for minutes on end, which I don't know that we want to take up too much more of these people's time. Do you want to get into what they're looking at next week against apparently juggernaut New Orleans Saints on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the time to really research the Saints too much. We all know what they did to Dallas, which we thank them for. In Dallas? Question mark. I think it was, dude. I think that game was in
Yes,
Dallas.
it was at the Cowboys, who are
better.
typically very good at home.
Even better. But yeah, Derek. It's funny. I think it was 2 pods ago. I did a couple of where are they now, and one was Gardner Minshew. And when I brought that up and revealed that he was a Raider, we both thought that Derek Carr was still the starting quarterback. Do you
I
remember
listened to that. I'm like, we're idiots.
And I forgot about that transaction completely.
Was that
Last
last year
year.
or this year? 'Cause
That's what I'm saying. I thought Derek Carr was with the Raiders last year, was he not?
I'm looking
That
it
was
up right
the
now.
Devontae Adams year with him and all that drama. But yeah, Derek Carr is having a great start to the year. Super Camario is having an unbelievable start to the year. Hope that no one had to face him in fantasy football with his I think 4 touchdowns yesterday. And they have a new offensive coordinator this year, the Saints do.
Clint Kubiak, who seems to be having Derek Carr playing at an all-time high. Yeah, we're both wrong. Derek Carr was on the Saints last year.
That's pathetic on our parts.
I know. I don't know how neither of us remembered that.
That's awful. I apologize for that. Who was
likewise?
Who are we forgetting about that was the quarterback for the freaking Raiders? Oh, was
Garoppolo.
it Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G. Yeah.
God, dude. Is he that guy? How did we forget that? He's so forgettable, I guess. Wow.
He really is.
Oh well. Um, well, we're not perfect. What are you gonna do? But yeah, do you know anything about this Clint fella? I don't know diddly about this Clint guy.
All I know is he's Gary Kubiak's kid, former
Oh,
coach, former coach of the Texans, and bounced around as a head coach in the NFL. I believe it is his son, but I cannot confirm.
was he with the Texans last year?
Clint Kubiak?
Yeah.
I do not know, but I will look it up. Thank you, Internet. Let's.
Or were you
find out.
saying maybe you're referencing his dad when you said former coach of the Texans?
Oh no, I don't know where Kubiak was prior to this year. I'm pretty positive his dad was a coach on the Texans back in the day, among other teams.
Hmm.
Let's see here. Clint Kubiak was the passing game coordinator for the Niners last year, and in that same position with the Broncos the year prior. So he's bounced around as an offensive quarterbacks coach, and he's their offensive coordinator this year with the Saints. His first season as actually, sorry, he was the OC in Minnesota in 2021. So his second stint as an OC, but seems to have Derek Carr playing at an all-time high, and the offense as a whole far and above the most points scored through 2 weeks in the NFL. They have 91 points, which is just
Yeah.
unbelievable. So, yeah, defense, looking at you this week. Got to try and stop somebody.
Revenge game for Bond, right? I think that he was a Saints linebacker last year.
You're damn right he was.
Bet Bond for 30 tackles this weekend. Man.
I mean, Bond still had a good game. I think he had 10 total tackles, 7 solo,
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean,
He didn't make nearly the impact
last
he
year.
did.
We went through this last year though, where when
Nick
was
Morrow.
getting 10 tackles a game after 5-6 yard gains every time. You know, like there's value to tackles, but the context is significant. I would argue.
Dude, this is wild. Okay, so the Saints have 91 points scored this year, given up 29. Their differential is 62. Okay, the next highest scoring team through 2 weeks is the Arizona Cardinals at 69 points, and then the Bills at 65. I mean, that is just an immense leap. 22 points
Yeah.
between number one and number two offenses this year. So, I mean, again, very early, but to be that far ahead through 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina is this year's worst team in football, it looks like, to be fair. They are an incredible combination of we cannot score at all, and we also have no ability to stop you from scoring at all.
Yeah, to the
be
tune of
fair.
a negative 60-point differential through 2 weeks.
Really, it's sad.
Yikes.
Also, by the way, we have to mention this really quick, and then we gotta move on. I gotta go in here soon. The Washington New York game. Did you track that at all?
I was watching bits and pieces of it. It looked like a slop fest.
I read an article. I didn't get to truly watch the game, but I read it. I was like keeping track of it, and I read an article that the Giants went into this game knowing that Gano had some kind of quote unquote minor injury. He was dealing with something, but they kind of said it'll be fine. Don't worry. So they didn't go into the weekend with another kicker at all. Well, sure enough, Gano ends up pulling something or getting hurt at some point and not being able to kick for a large portion of the game. And sure enough, they have the ball. I was watching on like the Gamecast because I was watching some of the other games, and the Giants it was like 18-18. It was a tie game, and the Giants had the ball and they're at the 22 at Washington's like 22-yard line or something, and it's 4th down and 4 or something like that, and they go for it. And I'm looking at that like, what the heck are they doing? Turns out they didn't have a kicker, so they couldn't kick the ball. And I think that they couldn't kick the extra points earlier in the game either. So they can't kick it to take the lead. Washington gets the ball, drives down the field, and wins the game. Giants, oh man, that was satisfying. And again, I don't know the severity of the injury, but the fact that he did have allegedly something going on and they didn't have a backup plan for if he got hurt during the game, that is idiotic. No, that's moronic. That's just so stupid.
That's
Could you
malpractice.
imagine? That's malpractice, brother. Could you imagine how pissed off we would be if that happened to our team? That is unbelievable. And then go figure it cost them the game. Yeah, no crap. Idiots, dude.
That is
What a
just
train
bad
wreck.
management of a football team. And the Giants GM situation has been an absolute dreck for years on end now. Yeah, I looked it up.
Train wreck.
Jamie Gillian, fantastic punter. Clearly not a good kicker. Missed the first PAT, and then they didn't go back to him the rest of the game.
So Gano didn't even get to try the PAT,
No,
basically.
it looks like he pulled his hamstring pregame and is now on IR.
Graham's getting too old for this, man.
God damn, the New York Giants. I am so glad I am not a fan of that team. Thank the Lord. And I'm just really glad they're in our division. So, all right. Yeah, Dan, let's wrap it up. This has been cathartic, I think. Unhappy, but it was good to talk about it, especially the day after when everything is so fresh, having left the stadium less than 20 hours ago.
Yeah.
We'll get this posted. I'm looking forward to a normal week of football. We actually get the Eagles on Sunday for the first time all year, which is going to be nice. I believe a 1 o'clock game. Yep, 1 o'clock on Fox on Sunday down in New Orleans, and then also looking forward to it. The week after that, they have the high-flying Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so they have their work cut out for them. They might be 1-3 come bye week.
And then I don't want to get super into it as we close out here, but just a quick update. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk more Phillies. A lot of emotional venting this pod, but Phillies are fighting for that first place position. They're basically like a game ahead of the Dodgers right now, and they're playing the Brewers right now. And they're up about 3 games from the Brewers. So it is tight. It would be really nice if they could win 2 out of 3 in this series. I think last I checked, it's 1-0 Phillies right now, but a ton of game left. So just keeping an eye on that. Also, Colin, pop quiz really fast. Can you guess the 3 wild card teams in the National League right now if the season ended today?
I did bring up the standings over here on my one screen, but I will not look at it. It's the Diamondbacks, Mets, and it's not the Braves. I don't know who's the third team.
It's the Fathers.
Ah, yeah,
They've been really good. So
Yeah.
in the order of Fathers, Diamondbacks, Mets, and then the Braves are 1 game out. And then I know this is AL, but this like blew my mind a little bit as I've been loosely paying attention. Do you know the wild card AL teams?
The Orioles.
Yep.
Again, I'm not looking at this screen over here. Orioles, the Guardians are still leading the Central, right?
Correct.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I haven't kept up on AL standings very much.
The Royals and the Twins.
Okay.
And you're
Royals
gonna
make
call
sense.
You're going to call me a liar? Get the Tigers are a game and a half out of a wild card position.
What?
How crazy is that?
That's insane.
I'm not making this up.
Where'd
The
they come
Tigers are
from?
A game and a half out of the wild card position, and that's behind the Twins.
Oh my God, I'm looking at their recent schedule. The Tigers are 7-3 in their last 10.
They're not that good. They just have a lot of young guys that have just been rallying, and their bullpen got really hot, and they would be a very boring team to watch in the playoffs. So I hope that they don't make it to the playoffs, but I just wanted to blow your mind a little bit. I thought that was crazy. They have 78 wins. Crazy stuff.
On their recent
Good for
schedule, they're 17-8, so 9 games over 500 in their last 25, I believe that is, if I'm doing math correctly. So
Shout out Matt Vierling.
Yeah, Matty V.
Matty V.
Yeah, didn't know that. So I'm glad you brought that up to my attention.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah, Phils took 2 out of 3 from the Mets over the weekend, which was good to see. After the shellacking they took, was that Friday night that they got just their doors blown off, and then two very very clutch wins.
We didn't
So
get
yeah,
to talk about the fight either. against the Rays.
Hey,
John
hey,
Boy just
hey, we don't do that here. We don't do that.
Damn,
Oh my.
I don't speak Spanish. Hey! By the
Yeah,
way, if anyone hasn't seen it, John Boy, who's known for his breakdowns, did an awesome, super lengthy breakdown of that. Well worth the watch. Just lots of good stuff in there. He showed a graphic that showed that pitcher every single time he's thrown that pitch this year, and all of them are in the box or right around the box. And then there's one that is just the one that hit Casty. It's just like in the middle. It's at his waistline.
Foot and a half inside.
And I looked it up. That was that pitcher's. I can't remember his name. That was that Rays pitcher's only hit batter of the year. So
Certa or something.
yeah, that was pretty.
So
Matt
yeah.
How about Strom coming out in his pajamas, basically?
Oh my
That was
God. Yeah,
hilarious.
he's in shorts and a tank. Like, get back in the clubhouse, you fool.
What are you gonna do? Look at those arms. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. You know what was a real kick in the dick though. Before we get out of here, is my phone died at like halftime yesterday, and I was slightly keeping an eye on the Phillies with my friends. Also, I want to send a couple quick shout outs here. Ellie and Adam, two fans I was sitting next to from London, who were in town for their honeymoon. They made a cross country trip over the last week or so. Great people. Awesome to talk NFL with some Birds fans from England. So Ellie and Adam, shout out, congratulations on your wedding and your honeymoon. Also, if you're listening and you met me at the tailgate, which I will refer to as the Twitter tailgate yesterday, thank you to the invite from my friend Brooke. A lot of good people. What's cool here, I met this girl named Brooke. She's cool. She met a whole bunch of people just on Twitter from, being a personality and talking Philly sports and what that. And now they have a massive tailgate together. And so I got to go there. I met a whole bunch of cool people. Some people asked about the podcast because everybody has their They did a thing with name tags and your name and your Twitter handle. So I put the podcast on there, and people were asking me about that. So if you're listening, having met me last night, it was a pleasure. There was, more people than I can name. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I believe I kept my stuff together and was entertaining enough to be welcomed back for their next home game, which is, I think, in like mid-October. I would like to think so. Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah, good, I put my best foot forward yesterday.
You are our whole entire marketing team on Monday.
I'm not a one-man show, but I'm definitely footing the bill when it comes to getting the word out. But anyway, all right, Dan. Yeah, I gotta get this edited and get to sleep because I'm running on very little after last night. Worth it. Fuck Birds, god damn it. All right. Do you have anything for the people on the way out?
Yeah, just keeping it simple and be careful out there and never trust a fart, guys.
Never trust it.
Never. It's not worth it.
All right, Dan. Hey, this has been cathartic. Good talking to you with as always. Looking forward to the stretch run here with the Phillies, and we'll see what the Eagles have on Sunday.
We'll be good. We'll be back.
Yeah, I hope so. All right. So yeah, been a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Dan, as always, it has been a pleasure, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Always a pleasure. Never a chore. Go Birds.
Go Birds.